Let's go. What's up, gang? Andrew Cooper in the house. Week 2 in the books. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. You know me on Twitter at Coop Fiasco. We're here, Fantasy Alarm, on the Better Network, sponsored by FFPC. And I got to tell you, folks, Week 2, easily the most important week for fantasy football. Week 1, obviously most important for football in general. You get a lot of answers. Week 2, that's where we get the patterns. This game is all about identifying patterns because we're trying to predict the future. The regular NFL fan just cares about what happened yesterday. We care about what's going to happen next week. What happened yesterday, it's information to us, but it doesn't help us win our fantasy leagues. So what we do now is we take everything that happened over the first 2 weeks and we put that together to create patterns. Like, you could be fooled by week 1. There were people hitting me up telling me that they were trading T. Higgins away, or they were trading for Zay Jones, or they were going to bench Drake London forever. It's 1 week. Now we have 2 weeks of data, and now we have important points. If a guy blocked, a tight end blocked on 11 pass plays in week 1, and this week he went out and blocked on 8, now we have confirmation that this guy is going to be a bum, right? If a guy last week went out and had 15 targets maybe, and then this week we said no chance that player gets 15 targets again, and he has 20 targets, well, now we got to listen to that guy. Of course, that guy I'm talking about is Puka Nacua. So what I'm going to do is go through each team and tell you exactly what we saw with information context from week 1 so that we can move on and dominate our leagues. That's the game, man. Shout out to the folks in the chat. Thanks for coming in. Fatty McFats, Brad McCoy. We love our friends over on Twitch. What's happening? I see you, Brad. I'm starting off 0-2. I have Cup and D-Hop and Amari as my wide receivers, Saquon and Monty as RBs. Should I trade Cup for an RB? You might have to. You might have to here. And honestly, the stuff I'm hearing about the Cooper Cup situation, that it could have nerve issues, could have genetics tied into it. Maybe you want to do that. So get your questions in. I'm going to do my best to answer them. But we also have 26 teams that played yesterday, or 28, and we have 4 more playing tonight. So do the math. This is an hour show. We can go a little bit long today. There's no Blitz. She's taking a little break this week. So maybe we go a little long if we feel like it. But we got to move quick. That's like 2 minutes per team. So let's get into it. I'm just going to go in order through these teams, tell you what I saw, what matters, right? First one, Arizona Cardinals. Last week, we saw Michael Wilson come out, played a full snap share, played like every snap started. We were pretty amped on that. This week, didn't happen. He didn't even start. What the Cardinals did this week is they decided to go with a lot of 2 tight end sets, right? They used more Zach Ertz. They used more Trey McBride. So Michael Wilson didn't start, and he played about half the game. Marquise Brown was the only full-time wide receiver. There's teams that do this at times. If you remember the T.Y. Hilton era when he was really good, he was a smaller wide receiver. He's like, 5'10". So you can't put him at split end or he'll get jammed up. Split end means you have your foot tethered to the line on the line of scrimmage. The guys on the end always have to have their foot tethered. So what they would do is they would use 2 tight ends, and that way he could be off the line, right? They would use guys like Dwayne Allen and Colby Fleener, like that time period, right? So their solution to not having a split end was to just use 2 tight ends, right? And that's what the Cardinals did yesterday. They opted to go with 2 tight ends instead of the split end, which hurts Michael Wilson. And on our radar, it makes him more of a DFS play, more of a stab, unless we see him getting back to that full snap share. So really right now, the only guy we can trust is Marquise Brown. You can definitely trust Zach Ertz, 10 targets week 1, 8 targets this week, and James Conner has the full role. So we know who the guys are in Arizona. Right now, Marquise Brown, James Conner, Zach Ertz. Those are the guys we can use for fantasy. So keep Michael Wilson stash where you had him last week. I want to see. He looked good when he got targets. It's just when he's not playing a full snap share, it's pretty scary for fantasy football. So let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons this week, perfect example of a team where you can't just give up on these guys because Drake London came back from his 0-point game last week and found pay dirt. This guy played 67 snaps, which led all the position players. Only Desmond Ridder played more. He played 82. And you got to keep in mind, 82 snaps, the average for teams in this league is like 65. So last week when the Rams played 81, the targets, the numbers were juiced. This week, once again, the Rams played well above average. That's going to come down. If you look at the Jets last year, first 3 weeks with Joe Flacco, they were playing like 80, 90 snaps. Flacco was throwing a million times. It made everyone seem like they were going to be fantasy relevant. Tyler Conklin, all these guys, turned out not to be the case. So keep an eye on that early on. Guys from those teams can end up being sell-high candidates, trade candidates, because if they're going to have 80 snaps a game in the first couple of weeks, They can't sustain that for the whole year. They might be above average on the year, but you're not just going to play more football than every other team consistently. It's game script dependent. So keep that in mind. The Falcons this week played 82. So above average. That's how you get so many touches for Bijan and so many touches for Algier. It's not always going to be that way. I will say this, though. Bijan looked so much better. He got all the pass work. Bijan is locked in, and Algier is more of a handcuff plus a guy that you start if you have to. But we kind of already knew that. We thought it might be a full split. It's definitely not. Bijan's the guy. And Kyle Pitts, in my yin and yang tight end rankings, the yin and yang, for those unfamiliar, is you start the safest possible guy now while you stash the highest possible upside play on your bench. We had to move Pitts to the yang category. He was a standalone guy, but you can't trust this guy if he's not going to get targets, if this team isn't going to throw enough, right? So Pitts ran 35 routes, which is more than Drake London. He got 5 targets, but Desmond Ridder just looked real bad. There's not much you can say about it. Someone in the chat saying, don't like that my video is flipped. Why is my video flipped? Let's get that fixed. There you go, chat. We're fixed up. Dude, that was weird. I was in the upside down for a minute. We're back, baby. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Mac Hollins did play 58 snaps. So, obviously on a team like this, you can't really trust the guy, but more of a DFS dart throw play. You can get him in there because he's going to play the whole game. So sorry about that, Dustin. All fixed up with the camera. Baltimore Ravens played 75 snaps. Again, above average. Justice Hill got most of the work. He started. He got the pass work. Of course, Gus Edwards got the touchdown. That's why we don't love teams with these mobile quarterbacks. And if it's a split with a mobile quarterback, it's kind of a nightmare situation. So, again, play these guys where you have to, but they're not going to just give one guy the full job. They have no need. And also, Lamar Jackson will score rushing touchdowns, and it will be painful for your running backs in those situations. So be careful with that. Demo, see you in the chat. Trade Dameon Pierce for Jahmyr Gibbs immediately. I would, because we're going to get to Dameon Pierce when we get to the Texans. But long story short, even with Mike Boone out, he split the snaps with Devin Singletary. So there you go. Mark Andrews owners, sigh of relief this week. He is back, played the full game, got 8 targets, got in the end zone. Let's go. Odell Beckham Jr. got hurt here. So was Zay Flowers and Odell as the full-time players with Bateman on the back burner? Bateman, apparently his foot is healthy enough that when Odell went down, he led this team in snaps from that point on. According to Nathan Yankee over at Pro Football Focus, I hope I pronounced that correctly, he said that Rashad Bateman played 21 snaps and Flowers played 19 after Odell got hurt. So those are your two guys for now. As long as Odell is out, it's going to be Bateman and Flowers. So Bateman's back on the menu. But I will say it's concerning that not only did Odell get that job over him, but a rookie was playing full snap share while he was a partial snap share. So that is concerning for Bateman. So keep that in mind. Next team, Buffalo Bills, 78 snaps this week. We know who the main characters are. Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis are the 2 wide receivers that play a full snap share. They use so many tight end snaps now. They're now a 2 tight end team that you're not going to be able to trust any of these other guys. None of the other wide receivers even played more than half the snaps. So I know there are Khalil Shakur truthers out here and Deontay Hardy fans. It's not gonna happen. Not unless something changes. Trent Sherfield played the most snaps of those guys with 33. So this team had 78 snaps available. Again, above average. Trent Sherfield played 33. Deontay Hardy 15. Khalil Shakur 12. You just can't trust that guy. A guy playing 12 of 78 snaps is a non-asset to me. So Khalil Shakur, if you can trade him in your dynasty leagues off of a touchdown here, I would do it. Anytime I can trade day 3 picks, I do it. We're talking about guys that have a 5% at best chance of ever being fantasy relevant. And by fantasy relevant, I mean one top 24 season. And that 5%, when you really break down the 5% itself, it includes a ton of guys that had needed red flags, they needed issues to get there. I mean, think about it. Within that 5%, you have Julian Edelman, who was a quarterback coming out of college. He wasn't even a wide receiver. You have Stephon Diggs himself, who went to Maryland. He had a bunch of injuries. He had a bunch of red flags getting suspended. He bumped a referee, had attitude issues, and he's probably the one with the least red flags. I mean, Antonio Brown is a walking red flag. He literally got kicked out of Florida International before they even started playing football, had to go to Western Michigan, any team that would take him, right? Literal crazy person. That's why he slid in the draft. You have Tyreek Hill. We all know why he slid. We don't have to talk about it. Pierre Garçon is a hit from that group. He's a D3 player, went to Mount Union. I know Mount Union is like the football D3 factory. They gave us, Cecil Shorts and Pierre Garcon and that whole gang. But think about that. If you take all those players away, what does that 5% turn into? It turns into like 2%, 3%. So you're just not getting a lot of hits from those rounds. If you can sell those guys, sell them. For every Amon-Ra St. Brown there's a million Robert Fosters and Keelan Coles and Preston Williamses that you could have sold for a second or even a first at some point if you just pulled the trigger. If you sell them all, the return is going to be greater than the one Amon-Ra St. Brown or the one Stephon Diggs you might miss. Because think of how many shots you get with all those seconds and all those firsts, right? You could have easily gotten a super megastar from that. So that's my move there. Enough about that though. So Bill snap counts. The James Cook played in space, but boy, we did not love seeing Latavius Murray and Damian Harris out there taking those big boy snaps. And Latavius Murray is a big boy and clearly capable, man. He was running hard. He was running like he wanted that job. And it looks like he's going to have that. So hurts for James Cook. We're going to bump him down just a little bit, but he gets all the work in space. It's kind of like J.K. Dobbins, where he's probably going to have a high yards per carry. And the people that just look at that are going to say, why doesn't this guy get more touches? Well, because in real life football, all they care about are two things: first downs and touchdowns. So a 2-yard run on 2nd and 2 is terrible for your yards per carry, but it's a great play by Latavius Murray, a great football play. So keep that in mind. All right. Dalton Kincaid, 22 routes, 25 routes for Dawson Knox out of an available 39. That is not what we wanted to see. I know Kincaid, he's heavily involved, and he didn't block on a single pass play, which is good. He played a bunch of wide receiver snaps, which is good. He played 47 snaps, but 47 to 78. We'd like to see a little more usage. So we're not going to move him all the way up. People want me to take these rookies every week, Laporta, Kincaid, Musgrave, and just move them up into like my top 6. Can't do it right now. We love these guys for Dynasty. This is the year of the rookie tight end. Got to pump the brakes just a little bit. All right. I'll tell you when it's wheels up time, but good to see that he's, getting targets in crunch time and, putting together a productive week. So got to feel good about it. Got to feel good about the tight end position in general. Had a lot of people talking trash about tight end after week 1. They're going to have to eat it because we had like 14, 15 tight ends in double digits this week. Tight ends are back. Travis Kelce's back. Mark Andrews is back. Everyone can go take a lap. Tag me on Twitter at Coop Fiasco if you've got a problem with tight end position. All right. And keep kickers and defenses too. Like, why is everyone trying to make this easier for themselves? Why is everyone trying to make this game so it's not difficult? Like, who wants to play in a league that's just running backs and wide receivers? Just get rid of the quarterbacks and tight ends and kickers and everything and just make it so that this game is easy as possible and you just pull up a spreadsheet and look at routes run and don't have to worry about pass blocking or any of that stuff. Nerds. Forget them. There are wide receivers lying all over the ground. So anyway, Chicago Bears, Donta Foreman, healthy scratch. Interesting. So we were hoping that Roshan would just take off and be a superstar. Not quite the case. Khalil Herbert, 31 snaps, Roshan, 22. So still a split. And again, similar situation where we have a mobile quarterback, loves to run it, literally hates to throw it, even when they call pass plays, right? They call, that's the problem with Justin Fields, is they call pass plays and he doesn't throw the ball. Every other quarterback throws the ball on over 80% of their dropbacks, every single one, and most of them over 90. Like, if you call a pass play for Matthew Stafford, over 90% of the time, he's going to throw the football. With Justin Fields, that's like 71%. So this week, once again, they call 37 pass plays. He doesn't have 37 attempts. Last week, they called 52, and he threw it 37 times. So that's what you're going to get with this guy, man. And yeah, he has work to do on the throwing portion of the game. No question about it. Cole Kmet, we loved the snap share last week. This is why the 2-week sample size is important. Obviously, we have the bigger the sample size, the better. But the problem is with that is you can't wait 3, 4, 5 weeks, right? You have to make the waiver moves now. You have to add the guys now. So 2 is the biggest we're going to get where we can still get these guys and still. Like, now we have double the sample size and we can still get some of these guys off waivers. We can still target guys in trades before other people catch on. So that's why this week is so big. Chicago Bears, Foreman, healthy scratch, Herbert 31, Roshan 22. Cole Kmet didn't play a full snap share. Last week, 72 of 74 snaps. Was feeling really good about that. This week, only played 35 of 52. They mixed in Robert Tonyan. They mixed in Mercedes Lewis. The fullback played a little bit. They had a bunch of wide receivers that played a ton. They went to 3, even 4 wide receiver sets. So Cole Kmet remains where we left him. And we didn't move him way up specifically because we knew that could happen at times. Moondog, Darnell Mooney left with a knee injury. That moved Claypool up to the top guy. It's basically DJ Moore and Claypool are the only 2 guys playing a full snap share. Trent Taylor, Tyler Scott, Bayless Jones, don't worry about them, man. And I will say this about the Chicago Bears and that organization with Ryan Poles. If you go back through these wide receiver situations, if DJ Moore doesn't hit, then they got to start reevaluating at least what this guy is doing with the wide receiver position, because they traded for Chase Claypool, which hurts. They drafted Bayless Jones Jr. with a high pick. He's looking like a complete bust. When Allen Robinson left, they could have just essentially done nothing and collected a compensatory pick because he got paid so much money by the Rams. Instead, they signed another wide receiver that canceled out the pick they would have gotten, which would have been probably a 4th or 5th round pick. And the guy they signed was Byron Pringle, who's not even with the team right now. So you start looking through these things. If DJ Moore isn't excellent, then somebody else needs to start evaluating the wide receiver situation there. So that's it for the Bears. Only 52 snaps for the Bears. So again, just like with the teams where the numbers are boosted, where they're above 80, you got to look at teams like this and say, okay, 52, that's well below average. Average is like 65. So there's going to be games where they play more. The Bengals, something obviously not right with this team, but I'll tell you what, T. Higgins, he's fine. The rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated because he came out, had 2 touchdowns today. He looked fine. This team is great for fantasy football because we know who everybody is, right? Chase, Higgins, Boyd are the wide receivers. Joe Mixon got virtually all the usage. He's not super efficient, but who cares? You start him every single week, and he gives you something. And every once in a while, he goes out and scores 5 touchdowns, or 2 touchdowns is more realistic. But he did score 5 touchdowns a game last year. Irv Smith is kind of the odd man out. You really can't trust the guy. He's just, even in DFS, the problem is his upside is catching a touchdown. Maybe one game he'll catch 2, but his upside is catching 1 touchdown, but he's priced as if he's a focal point of this offense, right? Too expensive for a guy that is just the 4th, 5th target on the team. Shout out chat. What's up, Keaton? What's up, Fatty? What's up, Dustin? Thanks for popping in, gang. So yeah, watch out for that. Bengals only 60 snaps this week, so a little bit below average. Bengals will have better games, but man, hate to call anybody frauds, but 0-2, that's not what the Cincinnati Bengals should be. And I think they're still a team that can make the playoffs here. Next team up, Cleveland Browns are playing tonight. After that, Dallas Cowboys. The formula to beat the Jets is pretty simple, and the Cowboys figured it out. What you do is you take your best player and you put him in the slot. It's as simple as that. I mean, Sauce Gardner last year played over 1,000 snaps. He only played 9 in the slot. DJ Reed is a great corner as well. Sauce Gardner, in 2 games now, has 0 slot snaps. DJ Reed has 1. He has 1. It was probably a man-to-man where his guy motioned in the slot and he had to follow him. That's probably how he got that snap. They're not putting these guys in there, right? So what do these teams do? Week 1, Stephon Diggs, 29 snaps in the slot. This week, they take CeeDee Lamb, 46 routes from the slot. It was blowing my mind that ESPN, NFL, all those accounts kept tweeting like, "Oh, it's CeeDee Lamb versus Sauce Gardner." And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's not the matchup. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb in the slot. It's going to be Sauce Gardner or Brandon Cooks on the outside getting vaporized by Sauce Gardner. And that's what happened with Michael Gallup. Just absolutely, they sacrificed him, sacrificial lamb. And Michael Gallup will have better days because, they just wanted to take advantage of a tendency that they knew this team had, and they did, and they won. So there you go. Tony Pollard, absolute stud. Start him every single week. I mean, got nothing else to say for that. He played pretty much the whole game, right? He played 56 of 63 snaps. There you go. So Tony Pollard, got to be happy about that. If you waited it out in Dynasty, you did the right thing. The thing we like to do, sort, S-O-R-T. Start opportunity, but roster talent. You want as many talented players as possible. Tony Pollard, very talented. You stashed him. Now you get to start him. Congratulations. Jake Ferguson, I think, is going to be one of the biggest frauds in fantasy, to be honest. I'm trading Jake Ferguson in Dynasty for anything right now. I'm trading him in redraft if somebody will take him. He scored the touchdown on a 1-yard play this week, but this guy last week, he played 75% of the snaps, only ran 50% of the routes. This week, we were hoping that would change. He only ran 21 of 43, not even half again. So we thought we were hoping it would improve from 50, worse than 50. So Jake Ferguson, not the guy we want. And you saw it. I mean, if you watch the game, they weren't locked in on anybody. They had Peyton Hendershot out there, got a goal line carry. Luke Schoonmaker, the rookie, scored a touchdown. Like, they are not committed to just one tight end. And if you have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks and Tony Pollard, if the tight end isn't playing every single snap, then he's not relevant. I mean, even if the one guy was playing every snap, you're not going to get a Dalton Schultz because there was no Brandon Cooks last year, and Michael Gallup was coming off an ACL. So the conditions changed, and now this guy's playing a partial snap share. Sell Jake Ferguson now. And people tell me, oh, Dak Prescott loves throwing to the tight end. That's not even true. There was a guy on Reddit that just posted a study. His name is, like, I Call Cats or something like that. Great study, though, that showed that Dak Prescott doesn't target the tight end on an above average level. I mean, CeeDee Lamb got 156 targets last year, 156. And Michael Gallup and Noah Brown combined for 150. So, and the running backs combined for 85. So what is it? Does he love the tight end, but he also loves CeeDee Lamb, and he also loves the other wide receivers, and he also loves the running backs, or just Kellen Moore just throw the ball a ton? That's what it was, right? So it's like this whole he loves the tight end situation. That's not even true, right? Or he just loves everybody. Maybe he does love the tight end, but clearly he loves CeeDee Lamb. No, like, clearly he loves the running backs. So just don't worry about it. Forget about it. Trade Jake Ferguson for whatever you can get right now. That's where I'm at. Denver Broncos. We liked what we saw snap-wise for Jerry Jeudy. He is back. He is in there. Sutton and Jeudy, the only two guys that played more than 30 snaps. So Brandon Johnson scored a touchdown, did a fun dance. That's fine. Marvin Mims, exciting as he was, still only played 16 snaps. Probably the most exciting 16 snaps I've seen since week one, Jahmyr Gibbs. So we need that guy to get more snaps. Definitely want to stash him on the bench, but how do you only get that guy 2 touches? He had 2 receptions and a punt return. And on those plays, he totaled over 150 yards. Just on the 2 receptions, had 113 and a touchdown. So got to imagine those snaps go up. These Brandon Johnson and Lil Jordan Humphrey snaps, give them all to Marvin Mims. Him. Let's go, dude. Smokey the Cat, Keaton Lion, what's up? Thanks for the sub to the channel, man. We got a ton of good shows on this channel. This one is more just me ranting till I'm blue in the face. The ones where are fun to hang out in the chat, I'll admit, are the ones that we do tomorrow. The lightning round is tomorrow at 1 o'clock in this time slot, and the alarm fantasy football with me and Howard Bender and Britt. Those are the ones where the chat gets popping, where we do a lot with the chat. This one, information. This is for serious fantasy gamers. This one, quick outs with me and John and Pemba on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And then, of course, on Friday, what I do with this show is we preview the slate. So Monday, I go through, break down all the stats and everything. Friday, I bring on a guest and we preview the slate. So these are just information overload. Friday's a little more fun because there's a guest, obviously. This one's fun too. If you like football, you see the smile on my face? I love football. I love stats. This is where you win your leagues. So you come in here Monday, you get it set up, you find out all the information you need to set your waivers, and then for the rest of the week, we have fun and we get ready for football. So that's what's up, baby. So Smokey, I see your thing. I will answer your question with this one. What's up, W or L? I traded London, DJ Moore, Kyron Williams for Chase and Debo, 12-team PPR. That's a mega super W, bro. Super W. Kyron Williams, cool and all. But if you have other wide receivers you can start, Chase and Debo, anytime you get Jamar Chase, you win, right? Like, done deal. So there you go, man. Probably trash PGA. I see. What's the best weekly fantasy show? If you're into winning your league, it's Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. This is the one that's going to give you the info for your waivers right now. This is everything that happened this past week. And then on Friday, everything that's going to happen for the upcoming slate. So 2 episodes a week, a lot of info. We got to keep going because we got to get to all these teams. Detroit Lions, next squad up. Or actually, before we go, the Broncos, we got to finish up. Adam Trotman, 8 pass block snaps, dead to us. Drop him to waivers. Not interested in that. Never was. Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams, it's a split, man. And Perine gets more pass snaps. The box score watchers are going to see 3 targets for Javonte, 2 for Perine, and say, oh, it's not so bad. It is bad. Perine played 28 pass snaps, only 15 for Javonte. So Javante, that's not enough to make P-Ron the better player for fantasy, but it's enough to kind of cap Javante's ceiling at RB2 range. I'm sorry. He's a tremendous player. If he had the full role, then he probably would be an RB1, but he doesn't. So we got to keep that in mind. Javante, not ideal yet. Detroit Lions, 66 snaps. So last week they played 80 something. This week only 66. That's what happens. The numbers come down. Sam Laporta, 54 of those 66 snaps, led all players, even more than Josh Reynolds, even more than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this week he pass blocked on 3 snaps. We want that number to be 0, but last week it was 5. So not as bad as we thought. And Laporta went out and did his thing. With at the tight end position, the weeks you got from Kincaid, the weeks you got from Laporta, that's all you can ask for in this world. 5, 6 targets puts us on a 90 to 100 target pace, which is every tight end to finish top 5 in fantasy football going back to 2003 has either had 90 targets or double-digit touchdowns, and touchdowns are just too fluky. So all we care about is getting those 5 targets. That's all our focus is. 5, 6 targets a game. So Laporta got it this week. He got it last week. We're feeling good. You got to be feeling good about it. David Montgomery, the split is what we thought it was. David Montgomery is the rundown back, and he looked good, and he's still going to get passes too because he can catch passes. Just like Gibbs is going to skew passing, but he's still going to get carries. And the real problem here with the information that we got was David Montgomery got hurt, and they said this is not just Jahmyr Gibbs' job. It's a split job in general. So Craig Reynolds came in and played some of that bruiser workload for David Montgomery. And if Gibbs had gotten hurt, Reynolds probably would have came in and played some pass snaps. So this is what the Patriots used to do all those years, where they would have like LeGarrette Blount at scoring 18 touchdowns but only catching 7 passes, and then James White out there, getting a million targets but getting like 120 carries. And if one of them got hurt, then it wouldn't be just one guy's job. They always had that extra dude, that Rex Burkhead on the team, or the Danny Woodhead on the team, or the guy that went to the Raiders with McDaniels. They always had that extra guy to come in. Brandon Bolden is the guy I'm thinking of, that would play special teams, and then when it was time, he would fill in that other role. They would backfill the other role. They wouldn't just give it to one guy. So keep that in mind with this team. It looks like what the Lions are doing, it might not. Dave Montgomery being hurt definitely helps Gibbs, but it doesn't turn Gibbs into an every single snap player. We saw it yesterday. Craig Reynolds jumped right in there. So for wide receivers, Josh Reynolds got the full workload. Marvin Jones got a partial workload, but I'm not going crazy adding Josh Reynolds because Jameson Williams will be back in a couple games. So I'm building my teams for championships, for the playoffs. Josh Reynolds is a guy that I expect to not be part of my team during that stretch. So I'm not spending fab on him. I'm not going out of my way to add him. This team, it's Laporta, ARSB, Montgomery, Gibbs. That's it. Craig Reynolds, I guess, if you absolutely need something. And I'll tell you what, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's a player that I was out on. My philosophy is to trade these guys. I thought that he was going to get the treatment that Tyler Boyd got, that Christian Kirk got when this team was done with the rebuild, when they added a split end and a flanker. Then he would go to the back burner. I mean, it still could happen, but the guy clearly is a good player. So Tyler Boyd, for instance, was getting 148 targets in a season, which is pretty much the same as what ARSB got last year. And then they brought in Chase, who was a flanker, and T. Higgins, who's a split end, and that moved Boyd into the slot and made him a part-time player. That's what I was worried about. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is an absolute super mega stud. And if you like building lineups with like only stars, which I love doing, it's honestly it's the most fun, and it's kind of hilarious looking at your team. Go to FFPC, myffpc.com. Use promo code Coop. They'll give you an instant $25 when you deposit 35 or more. Over there with their weekly challenge, it's set up just like their playoff game, which their playoff one, when the playoffs start, is one of the best ones out there, because the way it works is you can pick whoever you want, but you can only pick one player from each team, right? So in the playoffs, that's awesome, because as teams lose, you kind of lose those players. You got to really be strategic. But when you do it this weekly one, it gets crazy, because you get into these pools, right, of 10, 30, or 100 people, and there's no draft, no salary, no crazy rules, same format as the playoff challenge. And you can pick any players you want and just let them ride. And the only rule is you can't pick 2 guys on the same team. So, and that kind of helps you out, because you look at other DFS weekly platforms or whatever, last week, for instance, if you didn't have Tua and Tyreek Hill stacked, you just lost. You just straight up lost. Like you it kind of takes the fun out of it where it's like if that game's at 1 o'clock, you didn't have to watch the rest. When one guy throws for 600 yards and the other guy's 200 yards and a bunch of touchdowns, like it takes the fun out of it. Whereas in this case, you actually couldn't start both those guys, right? So you pick your players, you let them ride, and then the results are whatever it is, right? There's $35 buy-in or $200 buy-in, and like this is my team from this week. Now it wasn't. The team actually didn't do that great. I still have a player left. I still have Nick Chubb. But listen to this team. Trevor Lawrence going up against the Chiefs in what should have been a blowout, but wasn't. Not a blowout, but should have been a big game. Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Stephon Diggs. Like you can start anyone you want. I had Jason Myers in there. I had the Cowboys defense, which was a good pick. You can start whoever you want, and the teams look amazing. But everyone's got different teams. And the other part is that if you just pick all the best players, you're probably not going to win. Like you have to pick and choose your spots. Like we started Saquon Barkley because he was playing the Cardinals. Now he got hurt, but you got to go for those spots where you think a guy's going to blow up, right? We started Jalen Waddle because the Patriots take away your best asset, which is Tyreek Hill, and they also have Kyle Duggar, which just erases Durham Smythe. So go over there. You can build teams however you want, just ridiculous teams. It's a lot of fun. My favorite way to do it. I'm kind of burned out on the other ones where it's like, I need an extra $100 to make the team work. So I got to take out a guy that I like. And then that guy goes off and it's just like, it gives you the FOMOs. No FOMOs here. Start all your guys, make it happen. So use promo code Coop over at myffpc.com. And first time depositors, they'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. And the lowest contest for this, $35. So you're pretty much in. You know what I mean? If you put $45 in there, they'll give you 25, and now you can play 2 weeks, right? Or make two teams. They have two different rosters, classic and slim. We made a classic one on Friday. That one is big. It's 4 flexes. You start 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers, 4 flexes. I'll probably do a slim one this week just for time's sake. It takes a little while. So yeah, promo code Coop, myffpc, get in there, get it done. Back to what we were doing here. Here's a great example of a situation where a team the game script was not good for fantasy football. The Packers only played 50 snaps. Again, the average is 65. So you look around and you say, okay, well, why didn't my guy go off? Well, the team played a drastically below average number of snaps. So only 50 here. And it was a weird rotation too. Romeo Doubs led in snaps. He only played 38 of 50. They're rotating all these guys around. I think at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you're going to have Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs as your 2 outside guys with Jaden Reed in the slot, right? That's what's going to be. And we like that. And Jaden Reed looked good. And Jordan Love, honestly, looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, we're not saying this is a Patrick Mahomes comes in for Alex Smith or Jalen Hurts comes in after Carson Wentz situation, but 6 touchdowns through 2 weeks, got to be feeling pretty good about that, especially in Superflex where, of course, you start him. In a single QB league, I don't know if you have to go crazy adding him because he doesn't really have the rushing upside. And I don't know, the scripts have been kind of weird, but I mean, if your QB has been terrible, take a look. That's what your bench is for, right? Making the rest of your lineup good. I say it all the time with tight end. The people that they go out and they draft 11 straight running backs and wide receivers, and then they take tight end 14 and QB 15, and then they don't add tight ends and tight ends and QBs off the wire. Every week they just add the running backs and wide receivers, and they just fill their bench with players they'll never use and ride this bullet train directly to third place. Because the teams, when you get to the tournament at the end, the playoffs, every team is good, right? Every team has the running backs and wide receivers you have, but they actually put in the effort to find a quarterback and tight end. So don't be afraid to use a bench spot too on tight end, on quarterback, on defense if you have to. Like that's what your bench is for, making your starting lineup better. The 0 RB guys realize it. They draft all these wide receivers knowing that they're going to need to hit running back off the wire, and they use the wire to get the running back and win. The people that wait on tight end, they don't do that. They don't play it right. If you wait on tight end, you need to be the guy adding Laporta, going out, adding Musgrave, all these guys. I will say Musgrave could have been better. Only 3 targets. We had a bet in. It was an obviously stupid bet. I said that up front, but it's a fun bet. We bet on all 3 rookie tight ends to hit the over on the yardage this week. Kincaid came through. Laporta came through. Luke Musgrave needed one more reception. Had this team played 60, the average number of snaps, 60, 65 instead of 50, he would have got it, man. We would have been there. He played 44 snaps, ran 24 routes, which once again led the team. Last week, he ran 24 routes, which led the team. This week, he ran 24. Romeo Doubs ran 22. Jaden Reed ran 18. He only blocked on a couple pass plays. Sorry, he had 3 targets. Let me just double check. I want to make sure I get that information correct for you to make sure this guy's not blocking on a bunch of pass plays. So we have, 24 routes for this guy, and he blocked on 3 pass plays. Yeah, so we're good on those numbers. So yeah, Luke Musgrave, feeling good about him. If somebody drops him, throw him on the bench. Keep this guy stashed because not that often do you find a guy that's leading his team in routes run and could possibly be a top 2 target on the team. He only got 3 targets, but Romeo Doubs got 4, right? So he's right there. If this team were to have a game with 80 snaps, which they will, overtime games with better game scripts, he's going to be up there, man. So keep an eye on it. The Texans, for instance, 84 snaps this week. That's the next team in order. And so they played 34 more snaps than the Packers. They basically played 2 games compared to what the Packers played. So, you had Robert Woods, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Those are the 3 guys. John Mechie, we wanted to see more out of him, only played 14 snaps. So can't really call it now. Maybe they're ramping him up, but as of right now, unstartable, all formats. Mike Boone missed the game. Mike Boone last week split the snaps with Dameon Pierce. He played the pass work, contributed on that side. Dameon Pierce is obviously the hard runner, angry runner of the year award, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? They're going to split the work. And with Boone out, Singletary just played the Boone role. So we're hoping Pierce would be the dog. He wasn't. He played 38 of 84 snaps, not even half the game. Darren Singletary played 30. Dare Agumbawale played 16. So they're still splitting it. So Pierce, he's a fine start, but it's not wheels up. He's not the full-time every down guy like some of these other guys are, like, Kyron Williams is. We'll talk about him. Dalton Schultz ran 41 routes. I mean, Nico Collins ran 42. So Schultz is a guy that's getting the work. He's not exactly getting peppered with targets here. He did get 7, which is pretty good. So Dalton Schultz is about as safe but boring as you can get from a tight end. If CJ Stroud gets better, then he'll get better. Simple as that. Indianapolis Colts, 57 snaps here. Again, a little below average. Anthony Richardson is must start when he's healthy, obviously. Anytime you have a guy that is punching it in like that, running. If you run for 40 yards and punch it in like you did the first week, like you did this week, that is 10 points. It's all you need in this world in fantasy football. And then any passing is juice on top of that. So if he's good to go, you get him in there. Obviously, people should already know whether they need to add Gardner Minshew or not. It's super flex leagues only or 2 QB leagues only. And if you have Anthony Richardson hurt or some other sort of nightmare, then yeah, you got to go out and get Minshew. So I don't need to tell you whether you got to do that or not. Reese, I see you in the chat. Trade Hurts and Waddle for Mahomes and Keenan Allen. I mean, it's just too lateral of a move. So honestly, that is about as lateral as it gets. And if you have Hurts and Waddle already, I would just stick with what you have because those are the guys you liked. And I mean, it's a straight up even trade. So do whatever you want to do with that. To be honest, I love Waddle. I love Keenan Allen, but I would just stay with Hurts and Waddle if that's who you drafted because you drafted those guys for a reason. And I think they're both great players. And we saw why Waddle's going to have his weeks this week. I'll get to the Dolphins shortly. With Alec Pierce, he played every snap in the game. Michael Pittman played 56 of 57. This team, unlike a lot of other teams, they just they're willing to just use their guys, like the full guys, every snap. It's Pierce and Pittman on the outside, Josh Downs in the slot. They all have a place in this world. I think Pierce is a guy I'm still stashing everywhere because how many players play 57 to 57 snaps and run 35 routes? He only got 2 targets, which sucks, but he will have better matchups. He'll have better games. So I'm stashing Pierce. I'm stashing Downs wherever I can. If it flips at any point and Downs, so there's one role in the NFL that ends up being the best one for fantasy football. That is the player that is the slot wide receiver that stays on the field for 2 wide receiver sets. That is the best possible role. CeeDee Lamb is a perfect example of a guy that he played as a rookie, played only slot. Now he plays slot, and when they go to 2 wide, he moves to flanker. That's what Cooper Kupp does. It's what Keenan Allen does. It's what Chris Godwin does. Josh Downs doesn't quite do that, but last year they used Paris Campbell that way. Paris Campbell played slot, and then Alec Pierce would come out. If that flips at any point, where Josh Downs is the slot wide receiver and then Alec Pierce is coming out and he's the one playing 57 snaps, then it's wheels up for Josh Downs. And this is a player we loved coming out of UNC originally. So Josh Downs, Pierce is the guy for now that is getting that work, but you got to keep an eye on it. I'll let you know on this show if it ever happens because that's what we do on the show, right? Kylen Granson, he was in our tight end DFS article. If you threw him in a lineup, congratulations. He scored that touchdown, got the ball over the edge. And the reason we're starting him is that Jelani Woods is out. Andrew Ogletree started last week. He was out, right? So Kylen Granson is a guy that, he's not really an inline full-time tight end. He's more of like a Cameron Brate or Anthony Ferkser type. But if he's the only guy there, he's going to be playing a ton of snaps, doing what he does, which is line up in the slot, line up kind of like Logan Thomas a little bit. So yeah, we threw him in there. It worked. We're awesome at this. We're going to keep being awesome at this. If you look at the big story from this one, I don't really need to tell you about it because you already saw it. Zach Moss played virtually the entire game. Deion Jackson didn't even play. Zach Moss played 56 or 57 snaps, got every single touch. So congratulations if you added Zach Moss. If he's on the wire anywhere, grab him. I mean, come on, every snap. That's what we care about. So these teams make it easy for us just playing the same guys every play. Kind of love that. Jacksonville Jaguars. Christian Kirk, he's back. Last week, he was the guy that played. And again, the coach came out and told us it's matchup based. So now we have to pay attention to what the other teams do. If they play a ton of zone, then it's going to be more of a Christian Kirk game. If they play a ton of man-to-man, it's going to be more of a Zay Jones game. So last week, Zay Jones was the dude, and Christian Kirk came out for 2 wide. This week, Christian Kirk led the team in snaps, right? So one thing we do know is that Calvin Ridley, in both situations, he's going to play. So Ridley, he's locked into our lineups. Kirk and Zay Jones. Now we got to pay attention to matchups. Zay Jones, I'll tell you, disappears against good corners at times. So just be very careful. Last year, he disappeared versus Sauce Gardner. He disappeared versus Jeff Okudah. And if a team has 2 good corners like the Jets do with DJ Reed, he's going to be in trouble. So just keep that in mind. Evan Ingram, he was our premier yin of the yin and yang tight end strategy where you draft a safe guy that you can trust early on, but doesn't have a crazy high ceiling. And then you draft the upside guy on the bench. Evan Ingram's doing exactly what we asked him to do. Go out there. He's not going to lead the team in targets, but he's consistently getting looks. 8 targets this week. Last week, obviously, he was in the top 5 tight end range. So just deploy Evan Ingram every week where you have him and use a bench spot on just the craziest, highest risk, high reward options. Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid. Hunter Henry starting to look like an option. Just always keep looking for upside, but got to feel pretty good about Evan Ingram right now. Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce back. Noah Gray played a huge snap share. So they went with 2 tight end sets. Everyone's wondering who the wide receivers are going to be. They said, screw the wide receivers. We're just going to use a blocking tight end. 43 snaps for Kelce, 39 for Noah Gray, and even 15 for Blake Bell. So that's what they're doing. Wide receiver, the only one that played a full snap share was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, played 55 of 67 snaps. Sky Moore was next with 39. Justin Watson, 33. Kadarius Toney looks electric, but only 19 snaps. So just a DFS dart throw. That's all he is. Isaiah Pacheco is the man. The setup here that they have is the one that we saw with the Packers, where it was AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, and Jones, or it was more like AJ. It was more like Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, where they would split the pass snaps evenly, and then one guy would get more carries. That's what we have here. Pacheco and McKinnon splitting the pass snaps kind of down the middle. Pacheco even got slightly more this week, and then Pacheco's getting all the carries. So McKinnon, unfortunately, we had a lot of them. We thought he was going to be a pass down back like he was last year. Not really the case, so get rid of him. Las Vegas Raiders, Davante Adams, every week start. Josh Jacobs, every week start. Christian Wilkerson came in and played the Jacoby Myers role. So Hunter Renfrow didn't really jump up and play more snaps. This team, out of all the teams, this is the one where you might want to go and buy low on the players here after this performance because they only played 40 snaps. I can't remember the last time I saw a team go out and only play 40 snaps. 40 snaps. Average is 65. So to put that in perspective, when we talked about teams that played basically 2 times the game, the Houston Texans played 84 snaps this week, and this team, the Raiders, played 40. So they literally did play. It's basically they played 2 games worth of snaps compared to the Raiders. So keep Adams in your lineup every week. Keep Jacobs in your lineup every week. The tight ends are useless. They split the snaps. Not every team is going to have a fantasy relevant tight end. This team does not. And then Jacoby Myers, when he's back, you consider him. Everybody else, forget about him. They're going to use a fullback Jakob Johnson enough that they're never going to be a wide receiver 3 on this team. So don't worry about those guys. Los Angeles Chargers, 68 snaps. Chargers, once again, proving that they are highly capable of losing to any team in this league at any given time. They can beat any team and they can lose to any team. It's like the Ravens, man. So I don't know what the deal is because all the players on the team are good. I honestly think it's the coaching. It's Brandon Staley going for it on 4th down or not going for it in situations where he should. It doesn't make as much. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, man. They have a good kicker. They have a good quarterback. They have a good line. They have a bunch of great wide receivers. They have one of the best running backs in football. I do not. It's got to be coaching. They have Derwin James. They have, they have Asante Samuel Jr. It's blowing my mind, this team. So Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, start him every week. Justin Herbert, got to start him where you have him. I actually have a league where I draft. This is FFPC $350 buy-in big time league. If you want to play big time leagues like me, use promo code Coop over at my FFPC. First time depositors will give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. I have a team over there where I drafted Justin Herbert, and then everyone was trying to get too cute. There were like 3 teams that said they're like, oh, we're one QB league. I'm not going to draft a quarterback. I'm just going to sit back and do whatever, and I'll just get somebody later. I said, no, you're not. And I drafted Anthony Richardson too. At a certain point, I said, you know what? He's the best player on the board. Even if I have Justin Herbert, I took Richardson. And if Richardson's healthy, I'm going to start him over Justin Herbert. I'm going to play matchups. I'm going to do whatever. But those losers are just going to have to eat it. That you had your opportunity to get Anthony Richardson, and you got too cute in your standoff with the other 3 teams that weren't drafting quarterback. And now look at you. Now look at you, you dorks. So if you want to dominate leagues like that, like I do, go to my FFPC, use promo code Coop, and when you deposit $35 or more, they'll give you 25. And that's the same platform that I was talking about earlier, where you go in, you play the weekly one, where you can start anyone you want as long as it's not 2 players on the same team. And for the playoff one, which is a ton of fun, man, you go in and you do that same thing, but you keep the players for the whole playoffs. And I'll tell you what, FFPC is big time high stakes. If you win a FFPC high stakes league, high stakes to me, honestly, anything over $100 is for it's fantasy football. This place goes all the way up to $5,000, $10,000. They do $10,000 leagues. We commentated one here. We commentated a $10,000 draft on this channel on Better Sports, and one of the teams, his RB1 off the board was Jahmyr Gibbs, and his RB2 was David Montgomery. And I was like, this guy is a maniac. Not only is he willing to do that crazy behavior, but he's willing to do it with $10,000 on the line. And honestly, until Montgomery got hurt, looks like that guy was a genius, dude. So we commentate those. You can watch those. You can learn from those guys. But if you want to play in those leagues, get in there and win an FFPC league and put that in your Twitter profile. You'll be gold plated forever. You'll be a beast. You'll be a boss. We have no Britt Flynn today for Britt's Blitz after this. So guess what? We're doing overtime. Usually the show is only an hour, but too much to say today. 28 teams played yesterday, and we have 1 hour, and we got to do some FFPC stuff and some reads for our sponsors we love. It's only 2 minutes per team. So we're going a little overtime. We're talking ball. We're getting everything set. This is the biggest week that we have. 2 weeks, week 1, week 2, monster weeks here. So we're going to go a little overtime here. Let's talk about the Rams. 80 snaps for this Rams team. Well, sorry, before we get to the Rams, I just got to say, Joshua Kelly, we warned you guys. Do not start Joshua Kelly. Do not start him this week because he's not good and he's playing the Titans. There will be weeks if Austin Eckler's out that you might be able to start him, but running him up against Jeffrey Simmons and a defense that hasn't let up more than 66 rushing yards in like a calendar year, ridiculous behavior. If you lost guys and they were hurt, I won't say it's ridiculous. It made a lot of sense, okay? So, don't leave the chat or leave a bad review here if you started him, but it made sense to try and start guys like that. It's just a very difficult situation. If you had any other option, you want to get those guys in there. So that's it on that. Gerald Everett, just a part-time player. Donald Parham actually played more snaps, 34 snaps, but he blocks on too many pass plays. So Parham's useless. 34 snaps for Parham, 28 for Everett. And our guy, our super deep sleeper, the tight end, people ask me, what's the deepest tight end you roster in any league? The name is Stone Smart. And he played 22 snaps yesterday, creeping up a little bit. Creeping up. He's creeping up on you. Stone Cold Smart. Yes, his middle name is Cole. which is awesome. Stone Cold Smart in the house, baby. 22 snaps. Didn't really do anything, didn't get any targets. So he actually did get one target, but keep an eye on that guy. Super deep league. This guy played quarterback in high school. They converted him to wide receiver in college. Now he's a tight end. That's what we want. Converted athletic players. Both his parents are in college were, all division basketball players. All the memes are there for this guy. His name is Stone Cold Smart, for God's sake. So super deep leagues only, though. I have him like a taxi squad in a very, very deep league. But just got to get that name out in the ethos. He's creeping up, but you can't start Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett sucks. Los Angeles Rams, Kyron Williams, 76 of 80 snaps. 76 snaps. Sweet baby Rays. Cam Akers was full and active. There's been trade talks. Apparently, not a good week of practice for Cam Akers. Nightmare situation. But I've also seen teams make a statement like this where they bench a guy and then to teach him a lesson, and then he comes back and he plays a bunch. And they just say, hey, did you learn your lesson? So could be just coaching tactic nonsense. I wouldn't put it by McVay, but I wouldn't put it by, I wouldn't be surprised if he got traded too, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kyron Williams is just a dog moving forward. So got to feel good about Kyron Williams where he got him. The team of fun named players, Tutu Atwell, Puka Nakua, and Van Jefferson, which is not that cool. Cooper Cup's kind of a cool name. But Tutu and Puka, yeah, get them out there, man. Puka Nakua is gone full on luau mode. Like this guy, I even said it. You can go back find the clips of me last week. I said he's not going to get 15 targets every week. Technically, I was right. He did not get 15 targets. He got 20 targets. This guy is dialed in. He's in the Cooper Cup mode. And when Matt Stafford goes full Cooper Cup mode on you, you're getting a million balls. So, again, you can't be argued with. It can't be argued with. Until Cooper Cup gets back, Puka Nakua, we might even have to start ranking him as like a top 10 wide receiver. I don't know how we can separate where we have a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who also is very low ADOT, 7-yard ADOT player. I don't know how you can turn around and not put Puka Nakua in that neighborhood. So got to get him going. Tyler Higbee is the worst. He is not to be trusted. Last week, he blocked on 6 pass plays. This week, he got 7 targets, but in a game where they played a million snaps, he only caught 3. Tyler Higbee, he's in the same category as Taysom Hill for me, where he is capable of monster games at random. He's also capable of throwing up a fat 0 on like a 70% snap share. So Higbee, get him out of here. Somebody in the chat, AA, I see you, offered Christian Kirk and Alvin Kamara for Kyron Williams. Do I do it? Yeah, you take Alvin Kamara. You take Alvin Kamara for Kyron Williams straight up 150 times out of 10. So it doesn't even matter if Kirk's in there. Take Kirk too, sure. But Kyron Williams, yeah, you trade him for Alvin Kamara. Be crazy. Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, every snap, it's always going to be that way because how the offense is set up. Same offense they run in San Francisco. Kyle Juszczyk, Alec Ingold. It's like the Spider-Man meme. 2 Spider-Mans pointing at each other. They both play so many snaps, you're never going to have a wide receiver 3. Think about it this way. You got 5 linemen. You have a quarterback. You have a running back. You have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, right? That's 8 players there. If you're going to use, or actually, sorry, that's 8 players, yeah. And then Durham Smythe playing 61 of 63 snaps. So he's going to play every snap. If all those guys are playing every snap, right? If Alec Ingold is going to play 38 snaps of 63, how are you going to have a third wide receiver that consistently plays a bunch? So Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, Eric Ezukanma. This team's got some fun names too. But those guys, you can't trust them. River Craycraft only ran 8 routes, 2 targets, whatever. Those guys, none of them are playing even near a half snap share. So don't worry about them. They don't matter. Devon A-Chain showed up to great applause. One of their big rookie sleepers. 6 snaps this week. So maybe the shoulder still bother him. Maybe he needs to get ramped up. For now, Raheem must start. Most good Mostert needs to be in your lineup every single week until he's not doing what he's doing. So get him in there. Dude is running wild. He's the man. So get him going. Minnesota Vikings, 58 snaps this week. This is another offense we love. We love this offense because we know exactly what they're doing every single time around. TJ Hawkinson, locked in. Alexander Madison, dialed in. 3 wide receivers playing all the snaps pretty much. You are going to have CJ Ham and Josh Oliver mixing in for some snaps, 13 for Ham, 20 for Josh Oliver. That's 20 of the most expensive snaps you're ever going to see from Josh Oliver. So the third wide receiver takes the hit there, just like we talked about. We need Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne's roles to flip. It will happen. It needs to happen. But right now, it's Justin Jefferson, 46 routes, KJ Osborne, 44, Jordan Addison, 36. No more KJ Osborne. Make KJ Osborne the third fiddle like he was with Adam Thielen and make Jordan Addison the guy. Stop pretending like KJ Osborne deserves more snaps than Jordan Addison. He does not. So when that flips, it will fully, truly be wheels up for Jordan Addison, but the wheels are starting to come up. And they only played 58 snaps. This team generally plays a lot more. Yes, Reese Madison is dialed in. He's not producing, right? But in terms of usage, in terms of snaps, he's the guy. So, and they fully backed him this week, right? So he played 44 snaps. Ty Chandler was second. He played 7. So there will be better weeks for this player when he's not playing the Eagles. So I get your concern. He fumbled. He didn't look great, but he's getting all the work, right? There's only so many guys that get that. So until that changes, Alexander Madison is going to have bad weeks. He's going to have good weeks. And they fully backed him when he was getting all the racist, disgusting comments. They have his back, man. This guy, he's going to have good games. He's going to be fine. New England Patriots, next team up here in order. We're going alphabetical order by city. All right. Shout out New England. It's not a city, more of a region. But Devontae Parker showed up, and he showed up and played the entire game. So all the Kendrick Bourne stuff, this is why the second week is so important. Kendrick Bourne led this team in snaps. When Devontae Parker came back, Kendrick Bourne dropped back to third. And technically, he dropped back to fourth because Mike Gesicki is not a tight end. Mike Gesicki plays wide receiver for this team. Mike Gesicki played 53 snaps this week. He only played 2 at wide receiver, at tight end. Last week, he played 1. He has 3 tight end snaps on the season. Hunter Henry is the tight end. Mike Gesicki is a wide receiver. So the wide receiver snaps were Devontae Parker, 72 of 74. Juju Smith-Schuster, or actually technically Mike Gesicki next, 53 snaps. So 72 for Parker, 53 for Gesicki, 46 for Juju, 38 for Bourne. So Bourne on the back burner. Juju, to put in perspective, Devontae Parker ran 45 routes. Mike Gesicki ran 37. So right there. Juju ran 27. Bourne ran 26. The offense is now materializing what they want to do. They're going to use Devontae Parker as a split end with his foot tethered to the line. Opposite him, they will use Hunter Henry as a tight end with his foot tethered to the line. Mike Gesicki and Juju will be as the slot and the flanker moving around off the line, getting in space, and then they're going to mix and match these other guys. So that's what they want to do. That's what they did back in 2011 when they had Hunter Henry they had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, and they had Wes Welker. And Hunter Henry was a tight end 1, and Aaron Hernandez was a tight end 3 in fantasy, and Wes Welker got 173 targets. So that's what they want to do. That's the game plan. When you look at wide receiver, Ramondre Stevenson, easy for me to say. Apparently, my brain is only calibrated to do exactly 1 hour for this show because we hit the hour mark and my brain just was like, we're done, but we're not done. We're keeping rocking today. No Brits Blitz for those just tuning in. So we're just giving you the information that you need to make the decisions for yourself. Ramondre Stevenson, 54 snaps. Zeke Elliott, 22. That's the way it should be. It was more of a split last week. Now we're back. I see Reese in the chat saying Madison over White for now. No, I'm still starting Rachaad White. Rachaad White has a very similar role. We're going to get to that team shortly. New York Giants, 68 snaps on the week, and Darius Slayton was the guy that led in the snap category. He had 56. Isaiah Hodgins, 51. Paris Campbell, 45. Jalen Hyatt, though, again, electric on only 14 snaps. Time to get him ramped up. Time to get him going. When Wando Robinson is back, I want to see him going. The Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton, it's fine, but it's boring. Darren Waller, clearly his hamstring is good. 61 of 68 snaps, and he only pass blocked on 2 snaps. So Darren Waller, wheels up, baby, let's go. The concern here, of course, Saquon Barkley, he played the entire game. 68 of 68, 66 of 68 snaps. Unfortunately, on the third to last play of the game, he got hurt. So we have to monitor that. What's going on? I like Matt Breida as the next guy. People are going to try and sell you on the rookie, on Gary Brightwell. They're going to say Breida's boring. Breida last year, when Saquon briefly hurt his shoulder, it was pretty good. So Matt Breida, that's my boy, dude. I see you, Angie, in the chat saying no Brit. Hope all is well. Who's going to give us our winning props for tonight now? That's tough. Britt, she is doing well. She's just taking a little break, but she's gonna be back soon. Just crushing content like she always does. So she's taking a little breather. But we'll look at the games tonight. We'll do some props. New York Giants. So yeah, that's the situation there. Tough to trusting the wide receivers, but Jalen Hyatt, if he can do that on 14 snaps, then get those snaps ramped up and let's see what he can really do. This is a Bolitnikoff award-winning wide receiver, for the best wide receiver in college football. Go through the list of people that win that award. Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, right? Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison won in 2021, and then Hyatt won in 2022. There's not a lot of bad players on the list. There's not a lot of bad players. Pretty stupid thing for me to say. On the list of the best wide receivers in college football, there aren't a lot of bad players on the list. Yes, of course that's true. So, yes, Jalen Hyatt has the opportunity to be awesome. Daniel Jones, not super impressive, but if he's going to run like he does, then you can start him in fantasy. Real life football has to go on the back burner for this show because we're talking about fantasy football. Does Daniel Jones make terrible decisions? Yes. Does he have a punchable face? Yes. Is he a viable quarterback in fantasy football because he runs the ball and he can score rushing touchdowns at any moment? Also, yes. And with Saquon Barkley out, he could be scooting and scrambling even more. So Daniel Jones he's not going away for fantasy, unfortunately. And he's also not going away for the Giants because they gave him a gigantic bag of money after he threw 15 touchdown passes last year. But I digress. On to the other team in New York, the New York Jets. This team looked, they looked fine. They looked okay. Zach Wilson is fine. The jokes are obviously funny because it's the Jets, but this player can still play football. He can put some zip on the ball, and he can get it to Garrett Wilson, as we saw. So Garrett Wilson is going to continue to make plays because Garrett Wilson is awesome. It's the other cronies that came over in the family van with Aaron Rodgers from Green Bay, pack it up and truck it. Those guys are in trouble. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mecole Hardman, I guess he wanted with the team for some reason. Some sort of revenge on Patrick Mahomes for Mahomes having MVS now. He had to have Hardman or something. I really don't understand those players. But Garrett Wilson, you can start. Tyler Conklin, I would never, ever start because he's not that good. CJ Uzomah is a backup tight end, so don't really have to think too much about that. Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall and Michael Carter, that is concerning to me. That Dalvin Cook played 17 snaps and Breece Hall played 15 and Michael Carter played 15. And Michael Carter led the team in routes run. Three-headed monster is the worst thing possible. So I hate it. You hate it. Nobody wants to see it. Get Michael Carter out of my face. At least just split it with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. At least just split it between those two guys. That would be fine. Having a third guy in there playing the same number of snaps as the two guys that we like, awful. 4 carries for Cook, 4 carries for Hall, 2 carries for Michael Carter, 1 target for Cook, 2 targets for Hall, 2 targets for Carter. So 5, if you quote unquote if you want to call targets and carries touches, 5 for Cook, 6 for Hall, 4 for Carter. Kill me. I do not want to see that, man. Get Michael Carter out of my face right this instant. Philadelphia Eagles. Love this team because, again, highly consolidated situations. That's what we want in fantasy football. You look at the top 20 wide receivers last year, 10 of them came from just 5 teams. That means there were there were 20-something teams that didn't have a wide receiver in the top 10 at all, right? But 5 teams that were good teams had 2 wide receivers in the top 10, top 20. We're talking Tyreek Hill and Waddle. We're talking Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and we're talking Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and we're talking Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. These guys are going to go out every week and play. Devonta Smith played 77 of 77 snaps. A.J. Brown played 74 of 77. 5 targets, 6 targets, That's what's up. Zacchaeus and Quez Watkins, don't care. Doesn't matter. Dallas Goedert is a guy who we talked about this with him. If you could quantify it the way we look at running back, he's a handcuff plus, right? You start him, he has standalone value, but he only truly unlocks his high end value if one of the wide receivers gets hurt because the wide receivers get 7, 8 targets a game typically. So Dallas Goedert is a guy you start, but it's really truly wheels up when somebody gets hurt. So if Dallas Goedert is my starting tight end, if I have room, I'm not opposed to having some bench spots that I use on a potential breakout tight end, offside tight end. Again, if those rookie tight ends are floating around, not Michael Mayer, but Laporta, Kincaid, and Musgrave, toss them on the bench, man. You're going to need them for a bye week at some point anyway. DeAndre Swift, obviously the story there, crushed 58 snaps, went crazy. Will we see it again? I don't know, but he cannot be on waivers. You have to add a guy like that. Pittsburgh Steelers playing tonight, so no numbers there yet on them. San Francisco 49ers went out and had 57 snaps this week, so a little below average. Deebo Samuel, 51. Brandon Ayuk got banged up, but he still ran 23 routes to 29 for Deebo. Those are your two guys. Again, we talked about it with the Dolphins. Everything we said about the Dolphins is true about this team. Where Kyle Juszczyk, if he's going to play half the game, which he did, 24 snaps, you can't have a third wide receiver. So no Juwan Jennings, no Ronnie Bell, no Ray McLeod or whoever we got going over there, even though Ray McLeod is an amazing name. Like those guys, DFS at best. George Kittle's the man, 55 snaps. Again, he's kind of the same boat as Dallas Goedert. Need an injury to somebody else that gets touches for his touches to drastically increase. So George Kittle, again, starting every week where you got him. He only got 3 targets this week, but whatever. He's George Kittle. He can do more with less, this player, because he's got the speed. He breaks tackles. No tight end, since he's been in the league, has more 40-plus yard plays. Even with all the injuries he's had, he still has more chunk plays than anyone else. He's the only tight end in the league to have multiple 70-plus yard plays. He runs a 4.52, so he can do more with less. That's why he's the one rule. He breaks a lot of rules, honestly. Like Rob Gronkowski was a rule breaker. And when I say rule breaker, I mean we want our tight ends to be top 2 targets on the team. George Kittle, not necessarily the case with CMC and Deebo and Ayuk, but he can do more with less. Also, Gronk and Julius Thomas are the only tight ends I've seen block on 15% or more of their pass plays, but still finish top 5 in fantasy. He is just like a unicorn, this George Kittle fella. So you can still put him in there. It's just his ceiling isn't as high as some other guys because he doesn't lead the team in targets, which that's what Travis Kelce does. That's what Mark Andrews does. We tried telling you that all offseason, that a guy like Darren Waller could lead the team in targets, whereas George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, they won't. They straight up won't, unless a lot of people get hurt. So watch out for that there. Seattle Seahawks here. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, 2 guys on the outside, JSN in the slot. We told you this would happen. Before the injury, it was going to happen regardless. Look at Chris Godwin. When he was a rookie, first couple of years, it was Mike Evans and it was Deshaun Jackson. Those were the split end and the flanker. And Chris Godwin was in the slot. When they finally moved on from Deshaun Jackson, Adam Humphries, and those guys, now Chris Godwin moved into the Cooper Kupp role, the Keenan Allen role, where you play in the slot for 3 wide, and then you move to flanker for 2 wide. JSN doesn't have that job yet. It's still Tyler Lockett as the flanker. Eventually, as Tyler Lockett ages out, gets older, what we're going to see is Lockett being the guy that plays a partial snap share, right? We're going to see Mike Evans at split end, and Lockett is going to be the guy that comes out when they go to 3 wide, the way they would use Brashad Perriman like that, where Perriman would come in the game for 3 wide and play on the outside with Godwin inside, but when they go to 2 wide, Perriman would come out and then he would go out wide. Eventually, you will see that with JSN. But right now, the way it's set up, he played 32 snaps in the slot, only 8 out wide. That's consistent with last week. It's consistent with what we saw with early Godwin. So JSN, it could even flip this season, but for the time being, not super wheels up situation. It just isn't. So that's the way it goes. There's no fantasy relevant tight end on this team. Don't need to try and make one. They threw 45 times. Will Disley, 18 routes. Colby Parkinson, 16. Noah Fant, 18. Mm-mm. Not even 50% from anybody. Just like the Raiders, just like the Chargers, there's no fantasy relevant tight end here. I threw the Chargers in there because I think that's funny. But there's no fantasy relevant tight end on the Raiders or on the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, though, super relevant. 43 snaps. Led the team. Next closest was Charbonnet with 19. After that, DJ Dallas. So Kenneth Walker, man, it's classic. Pete Carroll, gum chewing, butt slapping player coach that just goes with his guys, man. He likes Kenneth Walker, and Kenneth Walker's going to play. He liked Chris Carson, and then they drafted Rashad Penny in the first round, and Chris Carson fumbled 4 times in like 3 games. And Pete was like, "That's okay, Chris, because you're my best friend. So you're just going to play all the time, and no one else is going to play." So that's what it is. Kenneth Walker, best friends. He lets Tyler Lockett play when Tyler Lockett is straight up injured. I've seen Tyler Lockett go to the hospital and then play the following week and do nothing because he was hurt. But Pete Carroll is a player's coach. So that's, he'll take his shirt off and hang out with DK Metcalf. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. So sometimes you just got to look at that and lean into it. Bill Belichick's the opposite. He doesn't even treat these guys like they're people. So you got to know what the coach wants to do, know what the tendencies are, know that Ron Rivera hates Antonio Gibson. So you just have to try and figure that out. I know we're not in the rooms, but clearly Pete Carroll has his guys. Kenneth Walker is one of his guys. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, next team here, 71 snaps. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, bing, bang, boom. You get him in there. Baker Mayfield is fine. He's not amazing, but he's also not CJ Stroud. He's not a rookie. He can deliver the football, and he can deliver it to Mike Evans. We know that to be true. Mike Evans looking awesome. Excellent. Better than he's looked in a long time. So Mike Evans, Godwin in there. Trey Palmer is your third snap getter, but he only played 35 of 71 snaps. Quick math out there, not enough. That's only half of the game. So Trey Palmer, Devin Tompkins, Raheem Jarrett, I'll let you know on this show on Mondays, every Monday, when we go through and we recap some of the stuff, I'll let you know if one of those guys ever becomes relevant. But the problem is, Cade Otton is playing like every snap, 69 of 71. Now, his usage isn't that great. 2 weeks in a row now, he's blocked on a bunch of pass plays, kind of rough, but still, he's in. If Dallas Goedert's a handcuff plus tight end, then Cade Otton is a handcuff tight end where you can't start him the way you can start Goddard. But if one of Godwin or Mike Evans gets hurt, now Cade Otton is definitely going in some DFS lineups for me and on some benches, because right now it's consolidated among Godwin and Evans. But if something happens, Cade Otton is now competing with Trey Palmer and Raheem Jarrett. Like, hell yeah, I'm in on that. O'Keefe and David Wales, blocking tight ends. Don't think about them. Rachaad White. People were concerned that he would split with Sean Tucker. That is not true. Chase Edmonds left the game, so Tucker maybe has a little bigger role, but 51 snaps for White, 17 for Tucker. I saw people adding Tucker because they said that Rachaad White stinks. Well, I don't care. Same thing with Joe Mixon, right? People are like, "Oh yeah, Joe Mixon's inefficient." I don't care. Like, he's the full-time every down back for the Cincinnati Bengals, who will be better. But even when they're bad, Joe Mixon was good. Like, he just is getting a bunch of touches. He's the only back. So if Rachaad White, I don't care if he sucks. He got 17 carries, right? He ran 26 routes. Like, just put him in your lineup, dude. Like, you drafted. There's only so many guys that play full-time snaps. So I don't care if the Cardinals stink. James Conner and Rachaad White and Alexander Madison, it's better than a situation where you start a guy and he plays 8 snaps or whatever Dalvin Cook played, So got to have him hanging around. I see you in the chat, Andrew. Andrew, great name. Hey, should I trade Amari Cooper and Swift for Ridley? That's tough for me because I am definitely in camp trade Swift. I'm willing to be wrong, but I like Amari Cooper. So I don't know if it's necessarily that gigantic of an upgrade from Amari Cooper to Ridley. Not a Swift-worthy one. I think I would just rather keep the players you have, Andrew. Keep Amari and Swift. Ridley's a lot of fun, though. Maybe if you think you're never going to ever start Swift, if you have like 3 or 4 really good running backs and Swift is just never going to crack your lineup, then maybe do that trade. because it is an upgrade. But I still like Amari Cooper. And definitely wait till after the game tonight before you do that trade. Don't do it right now. Then Will Lewis in the chat, sell high on Evans based on matchups. Will, that has been the Mike Evans problem for many years now. And the problem has a name. It's Marshawn Lattimore. And when they do play those games, Mike Evans is not only at risk of getting shut down, but at any given time, he's at risk of getting kicked out of the game. We even called it last time. That morning, I turned to John and Pemba and I said, Mike Evans fist fights Marshawn Lattimore like every time these teams play. And sure enough, kicked out of the game. So you do have to worry about that. I mean, this matchup this week with the Eagles, Darius Slay and James Bradbury, that's going to be probably a Chris Godwin game. Saints, Buccaneers, that's going to be a Chris Godwin game. But, the Lions, they don't got anybody like that. AJ Terrell, he can be a problem, but not like crazy. Trey White, they got the Bills after that. He stays on one side. So I don't think it's the end of the world. The real problem, though, is that the number one guy that just is super annoying and is very good at covering Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore, that's championship week for fantasy. So honestly, maybe consider it, but matchups to me aren't as important as talent. So do not trade Mike Evans for a less talented player over matchups. If you can sell Mike Evans for a better player, then do that. But that's our mantra for every situation. If you can trade for a better player, trade for the better player. So enough on the Bucs. Tennessee Titans, 65 snaps, so right down the middle. Damn smack average, 65 snaps. Nick Westbrook-Ikine, 44. Treylon Burks, 42. DeAndre Hopkins, 39. Hopkins is the guy when he's healthy. Nick Westbrook-Ikine got absolutely popped this week on a play. So, this team is just tough to deal with because they are the Titans, and they just are such a boring, I would say, team. They're capable of winning, obviously, but they win in gritty, dirty, Mike Vrabel ways. Jeffrey Simmons, obviously, being an absolute animal on defense. Good defense. Derrick Henry they kind of just beat you up, dude. Like when you look at your schedule and you see the Titans, you got to just be like, oh my god, dude, we're about to get physically beat up. Like these goons. Chig Okonkwo does not go down. Does not it's like a fist fight with this team every time, man. So it's hard to start any of these guys. Chig, if one of Burks or Hopkins gets hurt, then it's wheels up for Chig, but he's on the back burner right now. Basically, we just need somebody to get hurt. I hate to say it, but when you have a team like this with Ryan Tannehill, you need the targets to be really concentrated because Derrick Henry is going to do his thing. Ryan Tannehill is going to steal a rushing touchdown like he did this week. We need more highly concentrated targets to make it happen here. So just be careful with these guys. Hopkins is the guy I like best, and we love the talent on Treylon Burks. If it can all come together, it's going to look good. It's just, when is that going to happen? This team at some point is going to have a different quarterback, and then it's going to be fun. Tajay Spears, last week he played more snaps than Derrick Henry, not this week. And when you let's break down the actual numbers here to be extra sure. I want to check the pass blocking numbers too. You got Tajay Spears played 15 snaps. He ran 9 routes, pass blocked on 6. Derrick Henry, he played 18 pass plays. So still an even split, but Henry still ran more routes, 13 to 9, and obviously got 25 carries to 8. So Derrick Henry is still the dude. He's still our guy. Andrew asks, how would you rank these guys rest of the season? Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley. I would rank them A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and then Calvin Ridley third. Boom. And thanks for the sub and the like, man. Everyone else out there, I appreciate you guys. Sub and like on the Fantasy Alarm channel. Hit the notifications for this show. We do shows all week. This one is me telling you just exactly what happened and what's important from this week. Little dry because it's just me, but we got a little water here. But I'm coming at you with all the information that you need. Tomorrow we're going to have the lightning round show with me and Kevin Tompkins. That's a little more fun, a little more action. Probably going to make DFS teams do stuff like that. And then the Alarm Fantasy Football show we do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with Howard Bender and Britt Flynn. That one's just a lot of fun. That one we get the chat going, everybody hanging out. Albert, what's up, brother? See you in the chat, man, chilling. So yeah, That's how we roll, dude. So make sure you're hanging out 1 to 3 every day. We're in this time slot, whether it's me with Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco, whether it's lightning round, whether it's quick outs with me and John and Pemba, whether it's Brits Blitz on Mondays and Fridays from 2 to 3, usually in this time slot. I'm just kind of hanging out because she's not feeling that good this week. And then you got Getting Buzzed with Howard Bender. Like, we're chilling. This 1 to 3, we own it. We live here. So thanks for hanging out with us. Last team on the list here, we got the Washington Commanders coming out at 73 snaps. So above average, but not crazy. It's not like, some of these games that you'll have like overtime and stuff, like 90 snaps. That's when the numbers get real juiced and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So Jahan Dotson led 62, Terry McLaurin with 54, Curtis Samuel playing 45, running 27 routes. 27 to 45 routes doesn't really move the needle. So all these other guys, De'Ami Brown, Byron Pringle, Mitchell Tinsley, who I don't even know who that is, they're just not playing enough for you to care. Logan Thomas was playing enough for us to care until he got absolutely murdered. And the fact he held onto that ball when he got crushed, impressive, man. I hope he's okay, man. But he took that ball with him to the afterlife. He really got hit hard there. So hopefully Logan Thomas is all right. If he's not, the guy that we want is Cole Turner. We don't want John Bates. John Bates, he's the blocking tight end, right? Cole Turner is the more fun pass-catching tight end. The only tight end on this roster who actually played tight end in college is John Bates. Logan Thomas played quarterback. Cole Turner played wide receiver. Amari Rogers, who got injured, played quarterback. They got another guy, Elijah Hodges or something. He played wide receiver. Like, they don't really have tight ends on this team. They have one. They have John Bates. Everybody else is a wide receiver, and they just mix and match wide receivers all over. So last week, Brian Robinson got more rush work and more receiving work, which Antonio Gibson felt bad for Antonio Gibson owners. This week, the split was more even on pass downs, but Robinson got all the run work. So Robinson is the rundown guy, and then Robinson played 19 pass snaps. Gibson played 29. He ripped off the 36-yard reception, which was excellent. Like, you got to feel good about that play, but you need these guys. The split has to be at least even, in my opinion, for guys to be startable. So Brian Robinson, you're definitely starting. He's awesome. Antonio Gibson, we needed the pass snaps to be like, so if Robinson's playing 19 and he's playing 29, that means there's like 40 available. Quick math there, more than 40. We want Gibson to be playing at least like 35 of those. He's got to play at least like 75% of the pass snaps if he's going to get no carries, because that's how you get like James White. He would play all the pass plays. And then you have James White or Jared McKinnon last year. If he's going to only play half a job, can't start him. Can't trust him. So it's Brian Robinson. That's our boy. So that's the slate, man. That's everything we got going on. Tonight, we got another game. We got 2 more games, actually. They looked at the schedule and they said, do we have a good game for Monday night? And the schedule maker was like, no. They said, okay, well, let's just do 2 bad games instead. So you're going to get the Saints and the Panthers. That game is 39 point over under, which is low. It's pretty bad. Usually doesn't go any lower than 35. The lowest over under I remember seeing was like 32 or 33, and it was the game where Kendall Hinton started for the Broncos, and the quarterback on the other side was Taysom Hill. So that's what we're talking. So 30, if that game is like 33, then 39 is not good. So, and the other game is at 38.5. They're expecting these games to be divisional fistfights, like they kind of always are. So Saints at Panthers. Honestly, if we're gonna look through some prop bets here, I kind of like to go with Michael Thomas. Let me pull some numbers here for y'all, gang. But that one's going to be the most interesting for me, just because people are going to be on. People love Chris Olave and they love Rashid Shaheed, and they love to hate Michael Thomas just because he's outspoken. He's willing to say his mind, and he's not necessarily wrong when he says stuff about the medical staff that asked him to play through the ankle injury, and he did play in the playoffs. And then they told him, they basically, think about it, if you're Michael Thomas, how confusing this is. when they just want you to play. The organization wants you to play. So they tell you that your ankle can heal on its own and they make you play. This is 2021. They make you play and tell you your ankle can heal on its own. It's fine. Play in the playoffs. He played in both playoff games in 2021. And then that offseason, they turn around and they say, oh, by the way, you should have tightrope surgery to where we do this invasive process where they put a piece of hardware in your actual ankle and like tighten things up to repair a high ankle sprain. And Michael Thomas, of course, he's going to be like, well, didn't you just tell me that I could heal on my own and play through this? And that's why I played the entire season. So he didn't have the surgery right away. And then he did have the surgery and his body rejected the hardware and he missed the entire season in 2021. So 2020, people say he got hurt in 2020 and hasn't played since then. He played that year. He played in the playoffs. 2021, he missed the entire game. Then last year, he comes back and hurts his toe, not his ankle, his toe, not his big toe, the toe next to his big toe. And they come out and they say the same thing. They say, you can heal. We're going to fix you up without surgery. And then they tried to get him to come back. And that's why he spent multiple weeks being questionable and maybe playing. And then he didn't play. And that's why it frustrated fantasy owners. And then what happened? He ended up having to have surgery. And that delayed his comeback in the offseason. So for me, I look at the whole timeline and we on our side see a guy complaining on Twitter, but I see a guy that has legitimate complaints. So I look at it and I say, you know what, dude? Michael Thomas, I'm willing to bet that he's healthy and that he's good. And last week he came out and he looked healthy and he looked good. And so Michael Thomas is a guy that let's check out what we got for props. I'm going to go with a Michael Thomas. Let's go with a reception prop. That's what we like. And I like Michael Thomas. He's set at 45.5, 4.5 receptions. I'm going over 5 receptions for Michael Thomas. Hell yeah. Let's do it. Chris Olave set at 5.5. Rashid Shaheed 2.5. Nah, I like Michael Thomas. I think he's going to get a few looks there. For the first touchdown of the game, I like Miles Sanders. People talk about Chuba Hubbard, and they're like, oh yeah, Chuba Hubbard looked good. Chuba Hubbard didn't get any important touches. Every backfield is going to be split to some degree, right? So we want the guy that gets the high leverage touches. When there's a pass interference in the end zone, who do they send down to punch it in? That's Miles Sanders. When it's 2-minute drill, who's out there? Miles Sanders played every 2-minute drill snap. That's how we got all 6 of those targets in week 1. It was all 2-minute drill. And the reason that that's so important is that you can't sub guys out in 2-minute drill, right? You need to know every play. You need to know all the pass blocking schemes, and you need to hear 3 plays called in the huddle and know all the audibles and be able to perform. That's Miles Sanders. So he's the guy, and I like him first touchdown this week. So let's see what the line is. I think it's like plus 800 for first touchdown for Mr. Miles Sanders. So we'll get him in there on that one. So those are the 2 props I'm doing. First TD score plus 800 for Miles Sanders and over 4.5 receptions for Michael Thomas. Question in the chat. A couple questions here. Cameron B. Is B-Rob Jr. a solid RB2 rest of the season? I think so too. I think he falls in that same category, right? He falls in that same group of Rashad White, Alexander Madison, James Conner, where if they play that many snaps, then I don't care if they're super productive or not, right? Damian Pierce, the problem for him is he's on a bad team, but he's splitting with Mike Boone or Devin Singletary or whoever it is in any given week. That's problematic for me because that lowers the floor. The floor for a guy like B-Rob or Madison or White is that they get a bunch of carries and they're inefficient, but that's still 30, 40 yards and probably a couple receptions. So B-Rob, definitely a guy that I'm considering for moving forward. Got another question in the chat, but I'm having trouble seeing it. Earn Dogs below. Would you trade Garrett Wilson for Jahmyr Gibbs? No, can't. I'm keeping Garrett Wilson. Unless the David Montgomery news is that he's like out for the season, then maybe. But Garrett Wilson looks good, and Zach Wilson, he can still sling it. He can get it to Garrett Wilson. Like he was throwing some seeds this week. He was throwing with some zap Wilson. So I'm still in on Garrett Wilson. The Wilson to Wilson connection. Everybody else is dust to me from that team, no question. The second game tonight, here's the thing. People always want you to pick winners and give you the winners of the actual game. I only bet that in situations where I'm very comfortable with with it where I think the line is off and where there's not a lot of moving parts. With these division games, I just don't understand why somebody would think they have something special that can determine whether this game is going to have 40 or more points, or whether they who they think is going to win, because these games are just they spend all these teams are built to beat each other. They have special plans. They know they have to play each of these teams twice. Everything is set on that. The Saints and Panthers are thinking about the Saints and Panthers nonstop. The Browns and Steelers, all they do is think about the Browns and Steelers. So I'm not betting those lines. I do like betting the props, because with that we know what the matchups are. We know who's going to run up against who. We know who's good versus the tight end, who's not. Hayden Hurst has a tough matchup this week versus Saints. I'm telling you guys right now, if you're making showdown slates, don't put Hayden Hurst in there, because Jamaro Davis and the Honey Badger over the middle, not good. Bad news. There's certain players, specifically like Kyle Duggar for the Patriots, tight end killers. Eddie Jackson for the Bears, who just got hurt this week. Derwin James and Justin Simmons for the Chargers and Broncos. Those are tough ones, because sometimes they put them on the tight end, sometimes they don't. If they play Travis Kelce, they'll put Derwin James on him. If they play, if they play the Raiders, they're not going to waste Derwin James covering Austin Hooper. So they'll put him on like Jacoby Myers or something. But for these teams, don't want to start tight ends against the Saints. For this Browns Steelers game, the narrative is that Pat Freiermuth and David Njoku do well in these games, but I don't really buy into that from season to season, because the personnel changes. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of changes. So like when I look at, like, for instance, people are saying got to start Zach Ertz versus the Giants because he scored against the Giants 5 times in a row. Well, the last time that Zach Ertz played the Giants was 2019. That was forever. It's just like, how can you quantify that, and how does that translate? So, and not to mention, you look at David Njoku. The first game versus the Steelers last year was really good, but TJ Watt didn't play in that game. So what happens when TJ Watt is coming off the edge and they ask Pat Freiermuth to stay in and block, which kind of happened in the second game, and that's why the second game he scored a touchdown, but it wasn't as good. So people say, oh yeah, Freiermuth kills the Steelers. Well, you have to ask yourself why. And for me, with the personnel that the Browns have now, which is different than what they had before, and what the Steelers have now, which is different than what they had before, it's a different quarterback for the Browns even, then I'm going to evaluate this game. I'm not going to evaluate a game that happened last September without TJ Watt. So Njoku, I'm staying off. Chat, let me know what you guys are like. I see Ethan in there. Michael Thomas with the receptions. Yeah. 10 for 10 at 4+ receptions versus Panthers. Lock it in, dude. Prize picks with the prop of 4. I know I just said that we're not doing it because he always does it against the Panthers, but that's good to hear. But we're doing it because we like the matchup. We like the fact that Michael Thomas plays every single snap. So we're feeling pretty good about that one. Tonight, when I look at some of the props here, let's take a little peek, see here. Touchdown scores. Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb does score the first touchdown, but you only at plus 450. I don't think it's worth it. If you're going to play the guessing game of who's going to score the touchdown, then you got to have a reason to bet it. You know what I mean? The deepest one here that I would consider is Calvin Austin. What are the Calvin Austin props this week? Because with let's do a Calvin Austin receptions prop. That's the one I'm feeling here. Because you look at what they did last week with Deontay Johnson out. Sure, George Pickens and Allen Robinson played more, but they threw Calvin Austin right in there. 6 targets, 6 receptions. Maybe he is just going to kind of be that Deontay Johnson role there. So what do we got here? Are they giving us anything? Calvin Austin, receiving yards, 27.5. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know. He's not a high A-dot player. I'm not seeing any lines for. If someone can find a line on Calvin Austin receptions, let me know what you're seeing. I'm not seeing one for receptions. I'm just seeing one for yards, and I don't want that. So yeah, if you can find one that's like 2.5 or 3 receptions, they usually set at 0.5. So if it's like 3.5, bet the over on that. If it's 4.5, I'm not doing it. For showdown slate, captain this week got to be Nick Chubb. Got to be Nick Chubb in this one because he's the dog, man. All the haters that said, "Oh, I would love Nick Chubb if they didn't have Kareem Hunt there," forget that noise, man. Forget that. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at for the game tonight. I think there's going to be two very entertaining and fun games in division matchup games. Always fun. I'm glad there's two games tonight instead of one. We could start at 7 o'clock. But yeah, that's it, man. Here's what we're looking at for fantasy football. What how do the snaps shake out for the Steelers? Deontay Johnson's going to miss a lot of time. How do those snaps line up? Pat Freiermuth to me this is we talked about the handcuff plus situation with Dallas Goedert. Well, we got it for Freiermuth, right? Like Deontay Johnson is a 140 plus target guy year in and year out. Yeah, I see Ethan. Ethan, can we get that on the screen? Calvin Austin, 2.5 receptions on sleeper. Smash that number for sure. I think that they're gonna sneak him in there. Kevin Tompkins saying in the chat. Kevin Tompkins, if you guys don't check it out, every week he does a utilization type sheet where he covers. I mean, this is one of the most important articles that we offer here. I do the snap count one, which is my thoughts on all these players. Kev puts together a sheet that will give you everything you need: yards per route run, snaps, pass blocks. It's such a great article. You have to check it every week. You truly do. I like his article, that one. I always check out the JB Barry's doing a matchup one with cornerbacks versus wide receivers. So check that out. But yeah, we're feeling good about that. So check that out tonight. But yeah, we got to see what the usage is like for Calvin Austin. He could be a guy. If you can drop somebody and sneak him on your bench, some Yahoo sleeper, some of those channels, those guys, you can drop guys off your bench. If you had somebody who was hurt or who just sucked, you can drop them now and add these guys. Definitely add Calvin Austin right now. Add Allen Robinson if somebody already added Austin. You get a free look. You get a free look tonight. So with those ones, I want to see Freiermuth crush with no Deontay Johnson. 140 targets 3 years in a row. So I want to see him crush. I want to see Chubb and Najee good usage. Miles Sanders versus Chuba Hubbard is a battle that's been ongoing. Darius Brown says, should I trade Gibbs for Puka Nacua? I'm not doing that. I like Gibbs. The thing with Gibbs is he already was good enough that you were playing him every week. And now with David Montgomery out, who knows? Maybe this is the trick that gets him a ton of snaps. So I'm not doing that. The thing with Puka is that we like Puka, but what happens when Cooper Kupp comes back? You can't have two guys on the same team getting 15 targets. I mean, you can maybe it will be like AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, but I don't know. I think Nacua is a good player, but he might just be playing Cooper Kupp's role. That's the concern. For the time being, we start him everywhere we have him. But you got to think that if he's running all the routes that Cooper Kupp runs, what happens when Cooper Kupp is back? So not super excited on that. With the Panthers, I want to see what if a wide receiver can emerge here. They had all three guys playing virtually every snap. In chat, let me know, is DJ Chark, is he out again or is he going to play tonight? Is he cleared? Last I saw, he was questionable. If DJ Chark plays, that'll be huge because we'll get some information. We'll find out who's coming out, right? Like we're going to find out if we're going to get a full snap share from Terrace Marshall or Adam Thielen or Jonathan Mingo, or now do they just rotate everybody? If those guys played every snap last week, what if Chark comes in and now they all play 60%? That would suck. So I'm interested to see who is going to be the odd man out with this situation. That's a big one. I hope Chark plays so that we can get at least an idea of who's going to be the odd man out. And honestly, from what I saw last week, nobody really separated themselves. So I kind of like the idea of stashing DJ Chark. What if DJ Chark is just the best wide receiver on the team and he just hasn't played yet? So I got Chark stashed in some spots, and just to see what it looks like. But that's it, man. That's what we got going. We went way over time today because no Brits Blitz, and we wanted to make sure we covered everything. But that's it for me. Check out no show coming up after this one at 3:00. We get the Front Yard Fantasy guys. So go take a little breather, pop back over to Better Sports Network, watch Front Yard Fantasy. I was on the show on Friday, and we drafted a team. They play different fun games every single day, and we drafted a team of movie characters to be your fantasy team, right? So I mean, I crushed that draft. They didn't even post it on their Twitter because I absolutely dominated. My quarterback was Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. Throw the ball up over the mountains, right? My wide receiver, Inspector Gadget, right? You got the separation, but the thing is, like, he can go up and get it at the highest point with the go-go gadget hands, right? You can't stop the guy. So Inspector Gadget there. My running back, Forrest Gump, dude. I mean, come on now, absolute stud out of Greenbow, Alabama. Got to get him in there, dude. He was my first round pick. You got to go solid RB. I had people taking like Lightning McQueen, drafting a car. That's kind of cheating. But Forrest Gump, that's my boy, dude. So Rico was Uncle Rico at QB, Forrest Gump at RB, wide receiver was Inspector Gadget. My tight end, the Iron Giant, he's like 10 stories tall. He eats metal. How are you going to get a better tight end than that? And my kicker, of course, was Leonidas from 300. You see him kick that guy in the hole? That dude can kick. So Front Yard Fantasy, stay tuned for that. That's an awesome show. That's coming up at 3 o'clock. And then the rest of the week, you got us. You got Lightning Round tomorrow. You have Lightning Round and Front Yard Fantasy tomorrow, and Fantasy Alarm Football tomorrow. Wednesday, Quick Out and Fantasy Alarm Football. Thursday, you have Getting Buzzed with Howard Bender and Fantasy Alarm. And then on Friday, we're back for Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco and the weekly slate preview. So thank you to everyone who joined us today for an extra long, extra special show. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and we'll be back with this show on Friday. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one.